Hey everyone, my topic today is the changes in the literary market and the change in the role of the author in New Grub Street. So just as a little introduction, this presentation will explore the representation of authors in New Grub Street, focusing on the reader as a consumer and the demands of the literary market on the profession of an author. So just a little bit of background, as the middle class became a part of the literary scene, they changed what was expected of the author. So the author was writing for this market, but this market changed what they wanted to read about because they were the new sort of market with the middle class involved. So my presentation today will focus on the difference between creating for yourself with the hope that it becomes successful versus creating for the market with the intention of it being successful. So in my presentation, I'm going to be drawing on characters from New Grub Street, primarily Jasper Milvain, Mr. Whelpdale, Harold Biffen, and Edwin Reardon. So the success in writing for the market. So the potential model for a bustling modern industry that extracts inexpensive resources in order to create consumer products of manifestly temporary use. So this is showing that there is a potential in this new market to create something for profit instead of for like writing what you want to write, just to write. So this brings about a new idea of literature as a profession, and it presents how money could be made by individuals through writing. So this success in the market was due to the industry booming due to the middle class being involved in it. So this success in the market is seen in the characters of Jasper Milvain and Mr. Whelpdale, as these characters use the market to their advantage, and they change their writing or change their ideas for success based on this new market. So to start off with Jasper Milvain, he represents success in the writing in the literary market. So as the literary sphere changed, what the audience wanted in their novels also changed. And the authors that were willing to make this change were the ones that were successful in their endeavors and the ones that were able to make money off being an author. So this presents a new relationship in being an author. It depicts the act as a job or a career that can be profitable for individuals wanting to make a living by writing. So Jasper Milvain is Edwin Reardon's friend in the novel and is known for being a bright journalist. But his career in writing doesn't stem from being passionate about writing. Instead, he sees the market as this place around writing and sees a demand in this market that he can meet. So Jasper himself says that he writes about nothing in particular. So he makes a salvageable page or two out of whatever strikes my fancy. So to which Mr. Yule replies, exactly, you don't even pretend that you've got anything to say. So in this matter, Jasper is saying that he does give the people what they want. Like he just writes what they want to read about first. And then he mentions in the novel that later on, with all his money, he'll be able to write about what he wants to write about. But in this, he shows that he is not writing anything significant. He doesn't care what he writes about. He writes it just for the fact of getting money. And then this idea of money, he says to have money is becoming more and more important in the literary career, principally because to have money is to have friends. So in this, he's showing that in order to be successful, you must be a popular writer, and to be a popular writer is to have friends. So in showing this, he's showing how important it is for the author to be popular and to have friends, and because of friends to have money. So he encompasses the reality of writing what is popular for many instead of pleasure. So his view is to make a name for yourself before you can write what you want. His success depicts how the consumer represents a growing market and will buy what they want to have. And Jasper makes sure he is within this market and writing what people want instead of what he wants, which makes him popular and wealthy. As Jasper Milvain does this, he prevents the new normal of becoming a successful author. He disregards what he wants to read about and what he wants to write about, and he writes for the people who are purchasing his writing. So this shows the effects of the changed market, where authors' integrity is put at stake for the possibility of money and having money made in an easy way. So another example of this is Mr. Whelpdale. So he is successful because he is able to take advantage of the market and the dreams of other young authors. So in an example from the novel, he has an advertisement in the study every week. So this advertisement says to young authors and literary aspirants, and it's giving advice on subjects and giving recommendations to publishers. At this, like, Jasper laughs, saying like, you can't get anyone to publish your books. So instead you're telling other people how to write their books. So this shows how Whelpdale sees this spot in the market where other people want to write for this market, and he uses this spot in order to make money. So he convinces people that he knows what the market wants as a consumer, and he is telling people that if they pay him, if they give him their work and pay him money, he will fix their work, or he will change it, and he will give advice, and he will give their work to publishers so they would be able to write for this market as well, and they will be able to be in this market. This shows how Whelpdale uses the emerging market to his advantage, and he encourages and tricks others that he knows what the consumer wants, and that way he could spot a location in this literary scene where he can make money. He is appealing to people's want to make money through writing and introducing how this career choice can be lucrative if you have like a step in the door, which he is promoting that he has. Whelpdale also utilizes the market by creating a paper that is marketed to the middle class. So he describes the paper address itself would be to the quarterly educated. That is to say, the great new generation that is being turned out by the board schools, the young men and women who can just read but are incapable of sustained attention. So in this, he is using the consumer in a different way for profit. He's marketing a magazine for this consumer and is significantly writing pieces in this paper to please them in order to sell to fill his pockets. In this way, it is evident that Mr. Whelpdale is using the market to make money. He's not writing and publishing for his own pleasure, for what he wants, but all his actions show that he is in it for profit and making easy money by exploiting people. So therefore, through both Jasper and Whelpdale, the literary market is a tool for both of them to make money. They're writing and acting in ways that ensure that they are making money and will continue to make money. So this is contrast to the failures in the writing for the market. So as the literary market changed, to be successful, they needed to fit into the demands of the market. And those who did not fit into this box were old-fashioned writers and those who wrote for the sake of themselves or the models of realism they loved. The most prominent failure in pleasing the market is Edwin Reardon, as his dream is not to be a writer, but to be a literary man, which represents a fundamental change in his character that goes about something new and remarkable. And Reardon will not change his work in order to fit into demand. Rather, he tries to make his own work and hope the market will accept it. So Jasper recognizes Reardon as a different type of man and goes as far to say that Reardon, a man like me, he's the old type of unpractical artist. I am the literary man of 1882. So this presents how unaware both Reardon and Jasper are, as Reardon does not make concessions for the market with his work, and all Jasper does is make concessions to be popular. So this presents how Reardon is not using the market to his advantage at all. Instead, he is hoping to write to meet a need in the market that is unfulfilled. So this brings about the idea of the literary man. So Reardon writes to be the literary man, not an author like Jasper is. So this literary man is considered like an artist. He is something above the writer. He is the man of literature. And this is also shown where poverty inevitably awaits the writer of serious fiction. In this, we can assume that serious fiction means writers like Reardon who write for themselves and don't write with this market in mind. So because they're writing for themselves and writing in such a way and writing without this market in mind, they are being they're failing because the market is not interested in their work. This shows how Reardon will not change his style despite the threat of starvation. Just like Biffen, he is happy to live in the direst of poverty for the sake of his novel. So this shows, although they are failures in the market, they're sort of successes in themselves because they do not change their work in order to fit into this market. Instead, they write with the hope that the market will change and the market will see what they're writing as good and as very as changed, life-changing. So as I mentioned a little bit of already, so Edwin Reardon, both Edwin Reardon and Biffen are seen as hopelessly unpractical. They're bound to go to the dogs, meaning that they're not going to be popular with the market right now because they don't change themselves to be a part of this market. He wants to be called an artist, just like I mentioned before. Reardon, he doesn't want to be a writer. He wants to be something above. He wants to be an artist. And because he sees himself as an artist, his work is a part of himself. It is something that goes hand in hand. So he, as Jasper says, Biffen is Reardon is an unpractical artist, and Jasper is the literary man. This shows how they see each other. They see how they're very different in how they write. So he won't make concessions to supply the market. Well, all Jasper does is make concessions, as I said. So this shows how Reardon is a failure in this market because he does not change his writing. Instead, he hopes that the writing will change the market in total. So just like Harold Biffen works very slowly on his book. The book would make perhaps 2 volumes of ordinary novel size. We had labored over it for many months, patiently, affectionately, scrupulously. Each sentence was as good as he could make it, harmonious to the ear, with words of precious meaning skillfully set. Before sitting down and to a chapter, he planned it minutely in his mind. Then he wrote a rough draft of it. Then he elaborated the thing phrase by phrase. So this shows how Biffen is looking at his own writing and looking at this novel and seeing how it, and not changing a word of it for the market. He is a realist novelist, and he will not change his work for the market. He instead hopes that the market will find a spot for his work in there, and he will be popular because of that. So he also says that I'm going to reproduce it verbatim without one single impertinent suggestion of any point of view save that of honest reporting. The result will be something utterly tedious. Precisely that is the of the abnormally decent life. So this model of writing before the market changed, and this is his hope that people would love the book and want to read about it. But the issue is people do not want to read about this type of realism anymore. The market has changed, and he does not understand this change and will not change his work to benefit this market. Instead, he keeps what he wants to write about, and in this, he fails in this literary market. So both Reardon and Biffen fail the literary market because they do not change for the market, but instead they hope that the market will change for them. So therefore, the literary market is depicted in this novel as being very consumer based. If an author was like Jasper or Mr. Whelpdale, they would succeed because they know how to manipulate themselves and their ideas in writing to fit into the demands of the consumer, whereas Reardon and Biffen held on to a pointless hope that their writing would change the market, and instead they wrote for the hope that they would fit into this market. So they failed because they did not recognize the reality of needing to change in order to be successful. Instead wrote with the consumer and wrote with the hope that the consumer would like and allow them to fit in, and that causes them to fail. So due to the change in the literary market and the choices of the characters in Gissing's and Grub Street, it is evident that the understanding of the market's conception and its role in the literary scene depicts how authors need to make fundamental choices by either writing for the demand of writing or hoping that it will change the demands of the market. Thank you for listening to my presentation today.